verse number 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Please chant together. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Shrimatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Sukritsatam Nashtapraye Svabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki Tatra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Okay, devotees, if you have the verse ready, 115.4. Sakyam Maitrim Sauhridam Cha
Sakyam Mairim Sauhridam Cha
Sarathidishu Samsmaram
Saradhishu Samasmaram
Dripam Agrajam Iti Aha
Nipagradam Ityaha
Baspagadgadaya Gira
Vasagadgadaya
Sakyam Maitrim Sauhridam Cha
Sakyam Mairim Sauhridam Cha
Sarathadishu Samsmaran
Saradhishu Samasmaram
Dripam Agrajam Iti Aha
Nipagradam Ityaha
Baspagadgadaya Gira
Vasagadgadaya
Sakyam Maitrim Sauhridam Cha
Sakyam Mairim Sauhridam Cha
Sarathidadishu Samsmaran
Saradhishu Samasmaram
Dripam Agrajam Iti Aha
Nipagradam Ityaha
Baspagadgadaya Gira
Vasagadgadaya
Sakyam Maitrim Sauhridam Cha Sarathidadishu Samsmaran Dripam Agrajam Iti Aha Baspagadgadaya Gira Sakyam Maitrim Sauhridam Cha Sarathidadishu Samsmaran Dripam Agrajam Iti Aha Baspagadgadaya Gira. Word to word, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sakhyam, well-wishing. Maitrim, benediction. Sauhridam, intimately related. Cha, also. Sarathya Adishu, in becoming the chariot driver. Samsmaran, remembering all these. Dripam, unto the king. Agrajam, the eldest brother. Iti, thus. Aha, said. Baspa, heavily breathing. Gadgadaya, overwhelmingly. Gira, by speeches. Translation. Remembering Lord Sri Krishna and his well wishes, benefactions, intimate familial relations, and his chariot driving, Arjuna, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. The Supreme Living Being is perfect in all relations with his pure devotee. Sri Arjun is one of the typical pure devotees of the Lord, reciprocating in the fraternal relationship, and the Lord's dealings with Arjuna are displays of friendship of the highest perfect order. He was not only a well wisher of Arjuna, but actually a benefactor. And to make it still more perfect, the Lord tied him into a family relationship by arranging Subhadra's marriage with him. And above all, the Lord agreed to become a chariot driver of Arjuna in order to protect his friend from warfare risks. And the Lord became actually happy when he established the Pandavas to rule over the world. Arjuna remembered all these one after another, and thus he became overwhelmed with such thoughts.
Actually, I gave a class on this yesterday.
Oh.
But you could do it, you could continue, or you go to the next one, it's up to you.
because I read for this one.
Yes, go for it.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमामि विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषाशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
I just did it for you. The advice is here.
I'm sorry, bro. I didn't.
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke on one verse for 4 months, I think.
Oh.
A lot can be said about one verse.
Yes, bro. I don't think I can do as much justice to this verse as you have already done. But I will try my best, bro, with all of your prayers.
Probably better.
No. In today's verse, we are seeing a transcendental exposition of Arjuna's rasa, which he shared with the Lord. And he's remembering the Lord in separation because the Lord has completed or his manifest pastimes and he has gone back to the spiritual realm. So in the previous verse, we saw how Yudhishthir Maharaj was in great anxiety asking Arjuna what happened. And he had a hint or he had a clue that all of the bad omens meant Lord Shri Krishna has gone back to his abode, but he did not want to hear it point blank. So he kept asking everything else, hoping against hope that maybe one of these are true. And we saw he asked if Arjuna was mistreated. He asked if Arjuna had said no to a prospective marriage proposal, and many other things in such regard. But one thing we see here is what we also see in the material world. There's a saying that goes along the lines of, when the distance grows yonder, the heart grows fonder. It means to say that when there's separation after union, then the taste or the rasa of that separation and then union afterwards becomes even greater. When we say aswadhanam, it becomes very relishable and tasty. So when we see here, Arjuna is actually remembering all of the times Krishna has been with him. In scientific research, it is said that when a person is on their deathbed or about to leave their body, all of the activities or the most impactful activities that they have had in their lifetime flashes before their eyes, and then they pass away. And this is also what Bhagavad Gita is saying. Bhagavad Gita is saying at the time of death, whatever you have dedicated your life to, it comes in front of you, and that is the remembrance with which you will receive your next body, whether it's material or spiritual in the spiritual realm. So here we see Arjuna, he's already, as we'll see in the fifth verse as well, that he has lost his power and he's very dejected and he almost has no reason to continue living. So after this, the Pandavas, along with Mother Draupadi, they leave the palace, crowning Parikshit Maharaj as the king, and then they go on pilgrimage for the rest of their life. So now Arjuna is in a state where he has no more reasons to live. So in today's class, we will look a little bit into what is this separation or the pain of separation, and why do the acharyas say that ours is a crying movement, in the sense crying is glorified, crying is actually wanted. And we also see Gaur Govinda Maharaj saying, if you're not crying, then you need to cry that you're not able to cry. So why is there so much emphasis on crying and separation? I thought this movement was supposed to be happiness. It's about happiness and love and all the positive emotions. Why is it that there is so much emphasis on separation and crying, Vipralamba Bhav, and all of those aspects? So we will delve a little bit deeper into it. Then we will look a little bit into what the Natya Shastras say, but with an example. So we see that many plays are actually tragedies, especially some of Shakespeare's plays, and even when we see the Ramayana, it's just filled with so many tragedies. Yet so many people really want to continue watching it again and again. If it was supposed to make one feel sad, then one would just watch it once and then stay away from it. But what makes sadness such a relishable rasa is something we will look into a little bit closer today. And uh, okay, and we'll also look at one pastime which shows the separation or the loving and separation of all of the Brajavasis and the different associates that Krishna has had. It could be the trees in Vrindavan, it could be Uddhav, it could be the gopis, it could be the gopas, it can be all of them. So we will just look at how they were in separation of Krishna, whether it was Krishna, Akrura taking Krishna away, or Krishna sending Uddhava for the with the message. We see the different symptoms of separation that all of them have, and how it ties in with Arjuna, who's in Sakhyaras. So first, we must do justice to all of the different aspects in Krishna's life where Arjuna has, in Arjuna's life where Krishna has played a very important hand, and that would be in particularly during the war when Krishna was the chariot driver. So the one word in today's words that I could not pronounce correctly, the Sarathi or the Sarathi Adishu or the chariot driver, it's very important because it shows that the Supreme Lord is willing to take a subordinate position to his pure devotees. So we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this South Indian Brahmin who was illiterate. He could not read the Bhagavad Gita, and he was actually holding the Bhagavad Gita in flipped. He was holding the Bhagavad Gita flipped, and yet he was crying when he was looking at the Bhagavad Gita. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this is because he may not know how to read a single character in the book, but he was lost in the fact that Krishna was willing to put himself in such a subordinate position and take care of Arjuna as his chariot driver. So because of that, he was in tears because he couldn't find someone more merciful than the Lord himself. And that is very sweet because when the Supreme Lord is captured by his pure devotees, instead of them performing service for him, he performs service for them. When we see Mother Yashoda taking care of Krishna, she scolds him. I think last time we gave class, Mother Yashoda literally told Krishna, "Were you a pig in your past life?" We heard that verse, right? And Mother Yashoda will probably wake Krishna up, and Krishna hates waking up early. That's why if you see in the Banke Bihari temple in Vrindavan, the Mangal Aarti is at 9 a.m. because baby Krishna does not wake up early. So these are the sweet, relishable pastimes. And this is because Krishna has given himself completely to Mother Yashoda. It's not that if Mother Yashoda wakes up Krishna, Krishna will not say, "I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Give me 5 more minutes of rest." He would never say something like that. He's completely under the control. So Krishna chooses who he gives himself completely to. And that is why we see here Prabhupada saying, the Supreme Living Being is perfect in all relations with his pure devotee. Sri Arjuna is one of the typical pure devotees of the Lord, reciprocating in the fraternal relationship, and the Lord's dealings with Arjuna are displays of friendship of the highest perfect order. So there are two superlatives, highest and perfect order. There can be nothing that can be higher or more perfect than this relationship between Arjuna and Lord Sri Krishna. So one small pastime in the war that really comes to my mind is when Karna and the Kauravas, they had planned to kill Arjuna because they thought he was the biggest threat. In the warfare, although Bhima was so the way the enmity is Bhima enemy was Duryodhana because Duryodhana hated Bhima. That's why he was poisoned as well. And Karna hated Arjuna, and that is understandable as well. So Karna wanted to get his arch nemesis, so he plotted with the other army generals to a certain military formation and try to get through and kill Arjuna. And at that time, actually, Arjuna is trying to fend off the attack. And at that time, Krishna sees that there's a very strong attack from Karna that is coming towards Arjuna, and he presses the chariot downwards. And as a result, what happens is the chariot moves a little uncontrollably, and the arrow that was from Karna hits Arjuna's, you can call it kirita or it's the helmet, and the helmet falls off. And Arjuna actually, he's looking elsewhere, but he asks Krishna, "How are you driving the chariot? Look, my helmet has fallen off. Now I'm in a vulnerable position." But actually, Arjuna failed to see that if Krishna had not done that, then the arrow would have taken his head off. So Krishna didn't say a single word, but he knows that he is protecting his devotee. And as the war ended, and Arjuna asked Krishna to step off the chariot, but Krishna said, "Wait, you first step off." So Arjuna stepped off, and then Krishna stepped off, and immediately the entire chariot disintegrated. And that goes to show that it was only Krishna's presence on the chariot that kept the chariot together, and also the person who's sitting behind, the passenger, together. And that was only because Krishna was relishing the loving exchanges with his devotee in Sakyaras, and also protecting him at all times. And we saw last time about Bhishma Dev, about how Bhishma Dev was almost going to overpower Arjuna and Krishna went out to stop that. So one other that was the arrow, and then we see in the forest when the entire Pandavas needed, you could say in a way, moral support, and when they were banished, at that time Krishna visited them along with Balram, and then they gave good counsel to Arjuna. Actually, I think I mentioned before, it's Arjuna, Bhim, and Draupadi. They would actually feel a lot of frustration because Yudhishthir told them that we are not going to immediately go and fight. We will serve our turn, we'll make a good plan, and then will collect all of our allies after, and then we will launch an attack on the Kurus. We will not do it hastily because that would mean we would lose because all of the Pandavas' allies currently are with the king, that is Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana on the throne. So that really frustrated and ticked off all of the other Pandavas, especially Bhim and Draupadi, and they would constantly hurl abuses at Yudhishthir. You're not a Kshatriya. You have no good sense. You're a Raja Rishi. You're not a Kshatriya. You are more of a Brahman. You spend more times with most of your time listening to Brahmins for good counsel. So you've become a Brahman. You're no longer a Kshatriya, and they would really say very pricking statements to Yudhishthir. And Yudhishthir would try constantly. So they would really, every time there was any inconvenience, they would immediately burst out at him. If they could not find enough firewood or something, they would immediately say, if he had not gambled, if he allows us to fight and win back the palace, we would have been in a much better position. And then when Yudhishthir tried to make his point that we need allies and then we need to fight, they would say, okay, but it would be a temporary thing. But only after Krishna came and gave good counsel to them and told them that this is the current status of all the army generals, and it would be good if Arjuna, you can go to get the Pashupati Astra from Lord Shiva and also the different weapons from Lord Indra. Then we will bolster our army to an extent where we would be formidable. And that is after that is when Arjuna actually goes. I mean, there's a small thing in which he had to banish himself for some point of time. So he goes to Indra's abode to get the weapons. So in all of these times, whenever Arjuna needed the counsel and support, Krishna was always there to provide. And one other thing was the death of Abhimanyu, because that was inconsolable. Because Abhimanyu was Arjuna's favorite son, and his passing away in a let's say unethical manner, where Jayadratha and everybody, they had a military formation where it was more than 8 or 20 soldiers against one, and he was just an 18-year-old child, so to speak. So Arjuna actually, he was so angry that his formidable brothers could not save Abhimanyu, himself included, and he lashed out at them. And he said, "Are your weapons toys? Are your skills just for show? You could not protect my own son." And you could say, he made it worse. He rubbed salt on their wounds, so to speak. And at that time, Krishna came to Arjuna and he never told him, "I just spoke the Bhagavad Gita to you. Do you not know that you should be detached in this situation?" He never took that liberty to say such a thing. He told Arjuna that, "Look at your brothers. they're already suffering because of the death of Abhimanyu. You don't be the one making it worse for them. You instead use this as impetus to improve the way you fight. So that kind of counsel only comes from a close associate. Because when we see um, a parent always corrects the child by scolding or giving some sort of punishments because they genuinely care about the child. A stranger would never go ahead and say something like that. So Krishna was there as, you could say, a friend as well as a servant, as a das, as a chariot driver, and also in the, you could say, in a Vatsalya to be a protector for Arjuna. Now, we will see a little bit about the crying. I was talking about how ours is a crying movement, and everyone wishes that they cry when they chant, and everyone wants to feel the pain of separation and why that's important. I'm just repeating myself when I quoted Gaurganda Maharaj. He said that if you're unable to cry, then you need to cry that you're unable to cry. So, and every day in the morning we sing the uh, Shikshashtakam, and it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself who said, Nayanam Galada Ashru Dharaya. Ashru is tears, and you could say streams of tears. Actually, it's something more than stream. Is it a whirlpool of torrents of tears? So, and we also have the next verse. What is that, Prabhu? Yeah. What is it, bro? Ashish Padurata Nashtuman Darshanam Karotu तथा वा विदधातु लंपटो mat prananath. So these two verses actually show what we should be praying for. In the sense, I will just read out the translation for both of these. So okay. Said, O Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with a flood of tears as I chant your holy names? At the time of chanting, when will my voice falter at the names as the names come from my mouth, and the hairs of my entire body will stand on end? And that is exactly what Arjuna is experiencing here. It says, Baspa Gadgadaya Gira. When Prahlad Maharaj was saying the prayers to Lord Narsimhadev, it says, Prema Gadgadaya Gira. So he was filled with prema, and his voice was faltering because of the deep love and affection he had for Narsimhadev. And we see the same Gadgadaya here. And we also see Gadgada Hridaya Gira. We see the same Gadgadaya, the faltering voice. And this is because of the depth of the emotion that the person saying the words feels. So the reason we are touching upon this is because we see Kunti Devi, whenever she says Vipada Santuta Shashvat, Tatra Tatra Jagadguru, Bhavato Darshanam Yatsya, Apunar Bhava Darshanam. When she's asking for more and more miseries and difficulties, we need to look at it deeply that it's not a sadistic statement, but she wants difficulties because it gives her an opportunity to show her surrender for the Supreme Lord and also show to the world that the Supreme Lord protects the pure devotees. Now, there's one thing in the Preeti Sandarbha that Hari Pashal Prabhu quoted in a class that really stood out to me. And that shows that this sadness that we see, or you can see any of the devotees of the Lord, whether it is the gopis or whether it is now in this case Arjuna, whenever the Krishna makes sure that they feel separation. We see in the Kalya Leela that Krishna danced on the hoods of Kalya for a very long time, and he was actually in the clutches of Kalya for a very long time on purpose. He wanted the anxiety and all of the fear in the hearts of the Vrajavasis to increase higher. So it seems a little sadistic, right? Why would so there are some atheists who claim that who have studied the suffering of different people. They're economists as well, who they say something around the likes of, if there is so much suffering in the world, so there are only two options: either a god is cruel, or there is no god. That is their statement. I think they also try to file a case or something like that. So it is in a British court in that sense. But they wanted to say that they only see the suffering as a material suffering in that sense. So we see Prabhupada also saying that if Krishna gives special mercy, he takes away everything, right? So it seems like, why is there such an emphasis on suffering and crime? And Jiva Goswami in the Preeti Sandarbha, actually he in the before this one of the verses, he says, he says, Purusha Lakshanam, the end goal of any human being is two things. He says one is Sukha Prapti, is to get happiness, and Dukkha Nivritti is to lose anything that is cause of unhappiness. But in the same dialogue, he says, Jiva Goswami is saying, sometimes in the case of Pandavas who are eternal associates of the Lord, due to separation from the Lord, a transitory emotion of unhappiness is seen. This emotion in the eternal associate is also a component of bhakti rasa and is non-material. So all of this separation that they're feeling, we see in the Uddhav Geet. So actually, Krishna tells Uddhav to go. He says, Gacchodava Vraja Saumya, Pitrino Preeti Avaha. He tells Pitru, that's his parents, go, Gacchodava is go Uddhav, go to Vrindavan. Pitrino Preeti Avaha. He says, go to our parents and give them my love and regards. And then he says, Gopinam mad viyogadhim mat prane vimochaye. So he says in the next sentence, he says, Gopinam, to the gopis, give whatever I said. And he uses mud twice. He says, give my gopis what I have to say. And he never says anything about the gopas. So the acharyas comment that this is because the parents were in separation and they were in Vatsalya ras. And so Uddhava was supposed to go to Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda and then give them consolation by reminding them of all of the pastimes of Krishna. And the reason Krishna wanted Uddhava to go specifically is because Uddhava was a student of Brihaspati and he does not know what transcendental prema is. And he wants Uddhava to go and meet the gopis to know what real prema is and why there's a notion of I, me, mine or mamata for Krishna. So we've seen in the previous verse, there are three levels of this prema. So first is, in material sense, it is mamata or like my object. So it is my object, I don't want to lose it in that sense. Then there is a notion of samata. Samata would be like, let me give you an example. Happiness from detachment. So if we detach ourselves from any desires, if we are desireless, or let's say somebody had a material goal and they tried really hard to get it, but then they realized that I never needed that in the first place, so they detach themselves from it. That is also a sense of like happiness. But the next level is another level of mamata, that I cannot live without this, and that was the love that the gopis had. So when Uddhava had come to Vrindavan to tell the gopis something, so he was telling them that you know you don't have to be so attached that Krishna is not in your association anymore. So you can look around and see that everything is a manifestation of Krishna, and then be happy in that detached state. So that was his highest knowledge that he had. But he was actually a bit proud that they were just simple cowherd women, and he was learned in Brihaspati's institution for higher education, and as a result, he had the authority to give them good counsel. So that's what he assumed, and he spent many days there in Vrindavan, and then he slowly started to observe that the gopis they were agitated even more every time anything related to Krishna was possible. So if they see anything dark, they would be agitated. It would remind them of Shamasundar's form. And then every time they move, if they see some thorns along the way, they would be like, Krishna used to walk along this path, so we had to clear it so that his lotus feet are not hurt by walking along the path. So almost everything was reminding them of Krishna, that they didn't want to live anymore. So that was the level of advancement that they had. So what happened was, he asked the gopis, so shouldn't you be detached? I told you that you can remember about Krishna and that should give you happiness and solace, but instead is giving you pain. So why is that the case, is what Uddhava asks. And then the gopis say, we are simple cowherd women. Krishna has taken away our heart and our mind, and he's stolen it and he's not giving them back. So there's no way no way we can function properly because it has already been taken away. And that is also mentioned in the chapter Song of the Bee. in the 10th canto when Srimati Radharani talks to the bee, and Uddhav is also there, and he sees that this is a transcendental mellow that is beyond the prema that he has seen, and as a result, he says, "I would like to be born as a bush or a herb in Braj, so that when the gopis may accidentally trample upon me, I may get their lotus foot dust." And that is Uddhav's complete transformation of prema. So this pastime goes to show. Oh, I forgot to mention that Krishna never told about the gopas. So the acharyas say that he told about the familial relationship. So he says, "Pitrinu priti avaha, gopina mad viyogadim mat prane vimoche." You tell about me to the gopis. No, you tell about me to my gopis, he said. And then he also told, "Give my love and regards to the parents," but he said nothing about the gopas. So the acharyas comment that he did not say anything because he knew that the gopas were in a transcendental mellow called as Unmad. In Unmad, they experience hallucinations. In the sense, the gopas were in a hallucinatory state where they thought Krishna was still amongst them, and as a result, they were, quite happy. They were still enjoying their relationships with a hallucinatory form, and Krishna didn't want Uddhava to go and disturb that, because if they disturb that hallucinatory form, then they will realize that, oh, there's no Krishna here. So that's what the acharyas comment. That's their transcendental vision. They're able to see this is what Krishna's real intention was. So then Uddhav gets the realization that this is actually the highest form of love. And yeah, and oh, sorry. Okay, so this also occurs again when Krishna meets the gopis before the war of Kurukshetra. And there's one side detour I want to make to talk about why this is transcendental and not material suffering. So if you see in the Natya Shastras, there is this notion that the closer your seat is to the stage, the more expensive the ticket is. But if you see in mundane cinema, the farther you go, the more expensive the seat is, right? So the seat at the very end is actually the most expensive seat. So,
balcony?
sorry,
Balcony?
balcony. Yeah, yes. So the reason is because in Natya, or in a real drama or play that is according to the Natya Shastras that Rupa Goswami and all of the other acharyas have written, the ras is like it exponentially decreases as you go behind, as you move farther away from the stage. The closer you are to the stage, the more you're able to associate with the rasa that the performer is performing. So when we watch a play, I think in one of the classes, Haripashad Prabhu had mentioned that he had gone to a play of Ramayana, and then there was a part where um, the Bhumi Devi opens a fissure in the ground and then accepts Mother Sita, because Mother Sita had undergone so much suffering in that one lifetime, and still the folks or the people in Ayodhya were not willing to accept that, her purity and chastity. As a result, Bhumi Devi said that these people do not deserve your association anymore, and then she wanted to take her daughter. That is, she was born from Bhumi Devi. Janak Maharaj would use the plow, and then she was born from that. So she takes back Mother Sita, and then the entire audience were in tears and crying because of how emotional that scene was. In the material world, we call this intense expression known as catharsis. So when you say somebody is in a state of catharsis, and it's a violent exposition of emotions that makes the person feel relieved and happy. So it's a form of enjoyment that a person receives. So if someone can feel that catharsis even in the middle of a play, I mean, it's on a transcendental subject of Ramayana, but it is enacted by material people, like humans, just like us. Then the question posed is, if this is a transcendental mellow exchange with Krishna, then how much higher would the rasa be? So when I briefly mentioned about the Kalya Leela, Krishna waited so that everybody are almost fainted with anxiety that Krishna is taken away by Kalya, and then he rid himself off of it, and then performed the dance on the hoods of Kalya. because he wanted the transcendental mellow of all the devotees to go to the highest level. And then that actually gives them relishment. So, in the previous Sandarbha, it's also mentioned that this is a sanchari bha, or it's a transitory emotion, and it is an acting out of their bhakti rasa. When miseries come in the form of relishment of transcendental bhakti ras, then that is the highest bhakti ras. And even in the Brihad Bhagavatamrit, there is an analogy that's presented by Sanatana Goswami when he says that when someone puts their hand in the fire, as I saw today, Raghunath was going to put his hand in the fire in the temple. When someone puts their hand in the fire, the hand becomes dark, it gets burnt. Similarly, if the person puts their hand on ice, again, it becomes bluish black and dark, and you would say it's a frostbite, and this is a burn injury. Both of them cause similar damage to the human being, right? It gets burnt, and you would likely have to amputate in one case. But Sanatan Goswami says that the material miseries that we face is like one, and the material miseries that the associates or what the Lord has personally given to everyone faces is transcendental and non-material. So as a result, all of the difficulties the Pandavas had faced, and Krishna was there to protect them, they were actually transcendental accounts that enables them to experience the highest rasa, not just of protection, but also of separation, vipralamba, and all of the other more esoteric things that the acharyas have commented upon. And that is what makes it so relishable. So in the Padyavali, there's a verse that says, it's quoted by an acharya who has had darshan of Srimati Radharani. So he says, separation from Krishna is better than meeting him. When I meet him, there is only one Krishna, but when I'm separated from him, the three worlds become filled with Krishnas. So Srimati Radharani is actually, she calls the creator of the world a fool. So she, in the, not Gopi Geet, I think in the Gopi Geet, wait, let me be sure. Okay, so the gopis say that. So we had this word. It is from the Gopi Gita. We have yuga yugam nimishena. So it says even one moment away from Krishna is as large as a millennium. And the gopis in the Gopi Gita also say it. They say truti yugayatam. So they say truti is 1,700th of a second is as large or as long as 1 millennium. They say truti yugayatam Tvam apashyatam. So they say one, even when I don't see you for some period of time, it is as long as a millennium. 1,000th of a second is as long as a millennium. And the gopis also say that when Krishna goes to the forest, they do not have darshan of him, and as a result, they are in separation, and they want to meet him, and they are eager, and that increases the bhakti ras in them. And then when Krishna comes back from the forest at night, and then enjoys transcendental pastimes with them, then they get the higher taste of union. So basically, the point that all the acharyas are making is union is fine, but if you spend too much time in union, then it leads to familiarity breeds contempt. And that is what happened in the rasa dance as well. When the gopis, they got a little proud, and Krishna had to leave. And when he left and then came back, the bhakti rasa was enhanced even higher in something that's already the ultimate, or the ultimate in bhakti ras. So the acharya is saying that when there is union, then there is separation, and then union again. The bhakti ras is enhanced immensely, and one can really experience what the highest rasa is through that separation. And the gopis say that this truti yugayatam, but they also say that when they have the darshan of Krishna, the foolish creator, Krishna himself, has given us eyelids that close and open, that take away Krishna from us even when we are looking at him. So they're at that level where even the blink of an eye is painful for them, because during that blink they are unable to see Krishna. So that goes to show the high platform that the gopis have reached, where they're unable to let go of the vision of Krishna even for a short period of time. So coming back to the verse we have here, remembering Lord Krishna and his well-wishes, benefactions, intimate familiar relationships, and his chariot driving, Arjuna was overwhelmed and breathing very heavily began to speak. And this is because of all of the emotions, you would say the gushing of all the emotions of Sakyaras that he's facing, and it is at its peak. You could say in a play there's a crescendo, so it's at its peak, and with that he is going to say the bad news to Yudhishthir Maharaj. So with that, I would like to conclude today's class. I live to be corrected, and I would like to receive some feedback on how I can improve and make my classes more engaging. Thank you, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. If you have any reflections, especially corrections, I would like to hear them. Yes,
Just a minor question. Why did Krishna exhibit Vatsalya Ras on Arjuna and the Pandavas? I thought it's like a gradation, so
yes.
like if you're in a soap rush,
Mhm.
you don't use. There's also servitude where there isn't the higher rush. Why is it that?
That's a great question, bro. So when Krishna was bound up by Mother Yashoda in the Damodar Lila, he asked his Sakya friends in Sakyaras to remove the ulukal, the grinding mortar, so that he can continue playing with them. But the Sakhas, they tell him that this rope has been bound in Vatsalyaras. We are in Sakyaras, so we are unable to untie it. And there is a notion of Sanchari Bhav, which means it's a transitory emotion, where if one takes the position of the higher and gives counsel in that regard, so it's a transitory emotion of care and affection that a parent would give. So you would go to a authority or a parent to receive some instructions, right? So in that sense, there is already a servant and a higher rust there. So if you see when Arjuna had bowed down before Krishna with his Gandhiva bow slipping and it said, I'm your disciple, in that sense, that there is a transitory emotion that is not Sakya anymore. Because if he saw Krishna as Sakya, then he would not be in the best position to receive instruction from him. So he has to see Krishna as someone superior from whom he can receive instruction.
I thought our Swarup is eternal, so it's always the same. That's not the case. It can change.
No, you will be in like the devotee will be in Sakyaras. It's just Krishna who changed that. He gave counsel in that higher rasa in that sense.
But his question also, can you change? Yeah, you can change drugs. You can change your relationship.
What is Swarup?
Form. There's an original form you can change. Change your relationship.
Can you change?
So in a sense, in the spiritual world, the aim of all the devotees is to like become a gopi, right? In that sense, you would first be a servant serving Srimati Radharani, and when Radharani is very pleased with your service, then she will tell Krishna, and then you will be in a position to experience Madhurya Ras with Krishna. But you were in Dasya Ras before, so in that sense, like.
And then the second question is with I mean, you said that the Gopas were fantasizing. Oh, it's like they had
Hallucinatory. Yes.
Is that just like what? So they don't feel separation. They just that's how they cope with.
At that point of time, they were in that kind of separation, but then that separation would break eventually, and then they would not have that vision anymore.
It's just a different variety.
It's a different variety. Okay, then I think we can stop here. Thank you.